Tom again, T&B Tech. Today's video, I'm going to talk about the 5 things that Sony needs to do if they want to compete in the APS-C mirrorless market. So let's go. Top 5 things. Number 5, video. Okay, video is pretty good on Sony. Looking at what the 6500 has and what the 6400 has, it has to have all of that, plus it has to have more. In this point in history, mid-2019, there has to be more delivered from video so that it can be an excellent B cam for professionals and also just an excellent main camera for prosumers, travel photographers, consumers, and the like. So video, you need 4K 60. 4K 60, 10-bit, 422, 200, at least 200 megabit per second bit rate, ideally 400, but at least 200 megabit per second bit rate, HLG, ideally internal, all internal. I mean, it's great to be able to go to Atomos and, go 8-bit internal and 10-bit external. That's okay. They should be able to do this internal because you don't want to be adding stuff to your rig, right? It's a great, great advantage to be able just to pull out your camera and go. And that's what they need to do. So in addition to that, a couple other things for video, no crop, downsample from 6K, and you absolutely need to have both a mic and a headphone jack. Mic and a headphone jack have to be there. Okay, that's it. Number 4, buffer. Appears at this point in time, mid-2019, for RAW, you need to have about 50 RAW to be before your buffer fills up, 50 RAW files, and about 300 JPEGs. That's kind of minimum, right? And the other thing, saying a few things about that, if you go to the fine level for JPEG, you should be able to go unlimited until your card fills up. You should just process as fast as you can take them at probably around 11 frame per second rate. That would be competitive. As far as RAW is concerned, there's an issue there because RAW is all about quality, and Sony, you can't just offer a lossy compressed RAW file. You need to offer an uncompressed RAW and a lossless compressed RAW. That's got to be what you do. I don't know why you don't do that, but you got to do that for RAW because RAW is all about quality. Okay, that's it. Number 3. Flippy Screen. Okay, so this is an emotional thing. People are all going to get upset about this, but Sony, in my opinion, solved the problem with the 6400. They put the Flippy Screen straight up. Some people think that sucks because it gets in front, the hot shoe is in the way of the Flippy Screen. If you put something there, you can adapt to it, but that means extra equipment. Everybody wants it to flip out to the side, the Canon way. To me, that's not perfect either. It's not as compact, it's harder to hand hold. It just is likely, you can snap it off if you are unfortunate. I would be happy personally either way, I don't really care, but you do need to have, this body is all about portability, and it's all about being a B cam to professionals and being a main cam to prosumers. In my opinion, that's what the target for this body should be. Flip up screen works for that, in my opinion. Flip out screen would work too. So in my opinion, Sony, just one of those, please. Number 2, IBIS. Okay, we've all looked at 6500, it's got IBIS, 6400 is not. The XT series doesn't really have it either, but other cameras do. I believe this camera to be competitive in the second half of 2019 needs good IBIS. And when I say good IBIS, I mean better than the 6500. 6500 has IBIS, but not good enough. It needs to be better. It needs to be Panasonic, I'm sorry, I gotta say it, Panasonic quality IBIS. If you can't do that, then quit messing around. I mean, the IBIS in the 6500 is not that good. The OSS and the lenses, I've got these, Sony lenses here. The OSS is okay. I mean, you might get a stop or something like that. For me, it's all about how low a shutter speed can I go and still get a sharp image in low light. And the IBIS is just not that good because I'm told you can't move the sensor around that much in such a small body. Now, that could be a problem. This could require a larger body. And that's another, emotional conversation. Should you go into a bigger body that's like the A7 III and eschew the small rangefinder type body for the Sony? I personally want it to be as compact as possible. It has to differentiate itself. This line needs to differentiate itself from the full frame in some way. B camera, small, compact. So I believe you need to have it be small. So the best IBIS you can for this body is what I would recommend. If you have to go to a bigger body, then you open up a whole other Pandora's box of how do I differentiate? Am I going to go to the Z batteries, which would be great, but then it becomes bigger. You might get better heat dissipation, so you might have no problem with heating, but then it's not as compact. So that's a whole other discussion. It needs good IBIS in this camera when it comes out, if it ever comes out to succeed. The 6500 needs good IBIS to compete well in this market. And number one thing that Sony needs to do, most of all, is right here, lenses. I mean, come on. The lenses that Sony has that are APS-C native lenses are adequate at best. They're okay. I mean, some of them are okay. Not this one, but some of them are okay. But if you compare them to what Fuji has for the same price and the same optical quality and the same ergonomic feel, which does matter, subjective to people, I'm sorry, it does matter, there's no comparison. So Sony, I mean, with the recent introduction of the 35mm 1.8 full frame lens, and Hugh Brownson and others are saying that maybe Sony's got a strategy of just coming up with entry-level full frame glass, which is good in compact, and then APS-C users will use that, and then they can go to full frame. That strategy might work. It might work if the entry-level full frame glass is optically matched to the APS-C sensor, and I'm not sure it is, but if it is, because you look at the DxO mark ratings and look at Tony Northrup's discussion about using full frame glass on APS-C crop sensor bodies, it's not just a slam dunk, but if it is matched optically, and if it's compact, and if it's cost effective, and well designed, that might be a good strategy. But that means you have to have the whole line. You can't just have 35, 50, and 85. You're going to have 24, because on a crop sensor body, 24 gives you 35mm equivalent, right? And you may need something like a 17 or a 16 as well. So you can have the same equivalence on the crop sensor that you really want on a full frame. So that may be a strategy that Sony's pursuing, and if it is, that's great. If not, they need to have some way to sell people good glass that are on the APS-C camera. Even if it's a B camera, you need good glass. And I lied. I said 5. There's actually 6. So let's say 0. Yeah, I know. I said 5, but the last one is the previous video I did. The most important, the biggest problem are ergonomics on these cameras. They just, quite frankly, suck. I mean, the camera is like an ugly stepchild. I mean, I'm a practical guy. I like practical things. I like cameras which are just, okay, it works, it does the job. But it also, there's that certain something, the subjective feel in the hand that makes you really want to pick the camera up and want to take pictures with it. And I'm sorry, but Fuji has that, okay? To a certain extent, Nikon and Canon have that. Sony does not. It's okay in the full frame bodies because they fixed the control wheel issue that I discussed in the previous video, but it kind of sucks in the APS-C bodies. They're so minimalistic that they compromise functionality for what Sony would probably call a clean design. What I call is simple, right? And you got to figure out what's your target. If your target is B camera for pros and prosumer, focus on the word pro, then you need pro capability. And that means having enough controls on that body that allow me to actually get my job done and also, God forbid, have fun doing it. So that's my list. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments. Had some really good ones last time, and thanks a lot. See you next time.